Would you defy societal expectations to pursue love? Or stay within the bounds? The grand hall felt impossibly vast, its gilded walls echoing with soft murmurs and clinking glasses, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and aged wine. Candlelight flickered, casting dancing shadows that rippled across rows of noble faces dressed in silks and velvets, their eyes fixed intently on the stage. The opulence was overwhelming, a kaleidoscope of deep blues and golds swelling in the rooms, yet beneath the glamour, a silent tension simmered like a coiled serpent. Lady Eleanor stood poised beneath the chandeliers, her golden hair glinting softly in the haze of light. Her gown, elegant but restrained, whispered of her desire to blend in and be unseen, a mask of understated grace concealing the fierce storm inside. Yet her heart hammered wildly against the confines of her chest, each beat a plea against the looming shadow that was Duke Reginald. His voice, sharp as a drawn blade, cut through the murmuring like lightning through a midnight sky. "Lady Eleanor," he pronounced, his tone dripping with scorn, "it seems the whispers in the court are not unfounded. Your favor wanes, your influence is but a faded melody in the halls of this kingdom." Gasps flared like sparks as all eyes turned towards Eleanor. Heat flushed her cheeks, a crimson wave rising amid the sea of cold, judgmental gazes. The delicate mask resting atop her head, symbolic of all her hidden truths and untold desires, seemed suddenly heavy, oppressive like a fragile cage closing tighter. She swallowed hard, the flickering candlelight catching the glint of unshed tears in her eyes. The broken tiara, once a gleaming symbol of stature and promise, nestled forgotten in the folds of her dress, its fractured jewels mirroring the splintered hopes she guarded in silence. Reginald's smile was cruel, a serpent poised to strike. Is this how the Duchess repays the crown? With whispered secrets and fading allure? Perhaps your place should be reconciled red, not amidst the noble, but in shadow. A hush fell, suffocating and absolute. The whispers that followed were venomous, a storm gathering beneath painted masks. Eleanor's hands trembled at her sides, fingers curling into delicate fists as the weight of humiliation threatened to unravel her very being. Outside, the wind howled softly against the palace walls, a mournful tune beneath the glittering facade. The night's chill seeped into the grand chamber, threading through the crowd like unseen fingers. Eleanor's gaze flicked to the flickering candlelight perched near the dais, the soft, unsteady flame a beacon against consuming darkness. It was a fragile hope she clung to, a solitary pulse amid the encroaching shadows. Her breath caught as footsteps sounded behind her, her loyal lady-in-waiting, a glimmer of warmth in the sea of cold. Yet even the touch of kindness could not reach the cavern of doubt widening within her. "My lady," whispered the voice, trembling with worry and reverence. "The court's eyes are sharp, but so too is your spirit." Eleanor nodded silently, lips pressed tight against the storm swelling inside. The grand hall, drenched in gold and shadow, felt suddenly like a cage she longed to escape. The camera lingered on Eleanor's face, shrouded in tears and flickering candlelight, radiant yet broken, a portrait of rejected grace and budding defiance beneath the weight of expectation. And as the murmurs swelled once more into a tide of disapproval, Eleanor's silhouette slipped quietly from view, disappearing into the velvet dark corridors of the gilded palace, where secrets and danger awaited in equal measure. The heavy oak doors of the grand banquet hall groaned shut behind Eleanor, sealing her in solitude as the murmur of the court faded into muffled echoes. The vast corridors of the palace, once vibrant with opulence and whispered secrets, now unfurled before her like a desolate maze of shadow and silence. The rich tapestries and gilded moldings, steeped in centuries of power and intrigue, seemed to close in it with protection but with cold indifference. Alina's breath came shallow, catching amidst the oppressive stillness. The weight of Reginald's public scorn pressed into her skin, tighter than the corset she wore, constricting each fragile heartbeat. Her slender fingers clutched the delicate mask she had removed hastily moments ago, a symbol of hidden truths, now laid bare and vulnerable. Her golden hair fell in disarray over her shoulders, the lustrous waves dulled beneath the somber lighting, a stark contrast to the fiery turmoil within. Her reflection glimmered faintly in a distant polished mirror, a portrait of fractured grace and unraveling composure. She saw not the Duchess a court admired but the prisoner of whispered rumors and branded failures. The flicker of a candle nearby cast wavering light across her face, shadows dancing like specters of abandoned dreams. Her eyes, once luminous with hope and quiet defiance, were now pools of uncertainty, flickering with self-doubt like the unsteady flame. The broken tiara she had hidden, a remnant of lost status, lay abandoned on a nearby table, its shattered jewels reflecting a fracturing world. A soft footfall startled her. Her lady-in-waiting appeared softly under the archway, eyes shadowed with concern yet brimming with unspoken faith. "My lady," she whispered, voice a balm to Eleanor's frayed spirit, "the court's whispers will fade. Your truth remains, even if hidden for now." Eleanor's gaze met hers, a silent exchange pulsing through the heavy air, the flickering candlelight casting long silhouettes that entwined courage and despair. Without words, Eleanor reached for a fresh candle, lighting it with a steady hand, the small flame breathing warmth into the cold cavern of her solitude. With the flame's gentle glow illuminating her delicate features, Eleanor allowed herself the barest flicker of hope amid the overwhelming darkness. The grandeur of the palace felt distant now, replaced by an inner sanctuary forged from resilience. Her gaze drifted toward the window, where the night sky stretched vast and inscrutable beyond the heavy curtains. Through the glass, the outline of the moon shimmered faintly, a silent witness to secrets kept and battles yet to be fought. Eleanor's fingers brushed gently over the mosque's intricate filigree emblem of hidden selves and unspoken desires. It was a reminder that beneath the weight of shame and rejection lay a truth unyielding and persistent. Her breath deepened, and with a firmness born from quiet resolve, Eleanor stepped away from the table, the candle's flicker marking her measured advance into the shadows. Outside, the faint strains of distant music and laughter floated through the palace gardens, a world alive beyond her confinement, where possibility shimmered just out of reach. The camera held on Eleanor's profile, framed against the candlelight and twilight, the embodiment of elegance fractured yet unbroken, poised on the precipice between despair and defiance. And as the flame flickered, casting its golden halo, a subtle tension coiled beneath her measured steps, the first stirrings of rebellion against the chains that sought to bind her heart and spirit. The flickering candlelight cast elongated shadows along the corridor snaking through the palace's heart, where Lady Eleanor tread softly, each step a fragile echo against ancient stone. The grandeur of the opulent tapestries and gilded sconces seemed distant now, swallowed by a heavy shroud of disillusionment that clung to her like a second skin. Her breath was shallow, caught between relentless shame and a dawning ember of defiance. In the cold quiet, Eleanor's fingers grazed the delicate mask resting in her palm, the ornate filigree a whispered promise of hidden truths yet unspoken, identities veiled but not forgotten. The mask embodied her yearning not just to conceal but to discover, a symbol of the double life she wrestled with, the dutiful Duchess she was expected to be, and the woman she longed to become. Wandering deeper into the labyrinthine halls, Eleanor halted before a heavy wooden writing desk, its surface scattered with parchments and curled invitations. Her eyes caught a solitary envelope, faintly embossed with a silver sigil, a fresh seal against the tattered shadows of yesterday. With trembling hands, she broke the wax and unfurled the delicate vellum. The script was elegant yet cryptic, its words inviting her to a masked ball, a place where masks and mysteries intertwined, and where identities were as fluid as the melodies that would echo beneath the chandeliers. A surge of something long suppressed, a fragile hope stirred within her chest. The invitation shimmered, suspended between past regrets and a future uncharted. Outside, a soft pattering of rain began against the stained glass windows, each drop a cleansing note that whispered of renewal amid the palace's suffocating grandeur. The rain's rhythm matched the flickering flame of a lone candle nearby, its trembling light a fragile beacon against the encompassing darkness. Eleanor's gaze lifted towards the vaulted ceiling, where the constellations of intricate crystal chandeliers caught and fractured the candlelight into a cascade of sapphire and gold hues, rich, vibrant, yet shimmering with an undercurrent of shadow. The palace, majestic yet confining, became a tableau of possibility and peril. Her lips parted in a breathless sigh, the tension within her muscles softening as determination bloomed amid the ruins of doubt. The broken tiara she had concealed beneath her gown, once a symbol of shattered dreams, felt less like a weight and more like a call to reclaim her fractured identity. Drawing the mask gently to her face, Eleanor inhaled the scent of melting wax and aged parchment, the mingled aromas entwined with her own bittersweet memories. The mask rested lightly, concealing yet revealing, a metaphor for her burgeoning courage to step beyond the court's glare and reclaim her destiny. As the rain whispered louder against the stone, a renewed fire kindled behind her emerald eyes. The invitation was more than a summons. It was an opening, a threshold beckoning her away from shadows and toward a destiny she dared to grasp. With measured grace, she folded the letter and tucked it close to her heart, the flickering candlelight illuminating the contours of a face both vulnerable and fiercely resolute. The palace around her seemed to breathe in tandem, the deep blues and glowing golds coalescing into a symphony of light and dark, the perfect stage for the quiet revolution stirring within. Stepping away from the desk, her silhouette melted into the labyrinth, the delicate mask now a talisman, and the promise of the masked ball a beacon calling her forward. Outside, the rain softened to a whisper, the first breath of dawn hinting on the horizon, as Eleanor vanished into the palace's Messiah figure poised on the cusp of transformation, caught between the chains of duty and the lure of freedom. The morning light filtered faintly through the heavy velvet drapes of Eleanor's chamber, casting long, delicate shadows upon the silken folds of her gown. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and melting wax, the faint flicker of a single candle's flame waltzing in rhythm with the distant murmur of the awakening palace. Outside, the sky clung stubbornly to slate-gray clouds, threatening rain that mirrored the tumult within Eleanor's heart. With tentative fingers, she traced the exquisite filigree of the mask resting on her dressing tablet, a fragile emblem of hidden truths and unfolding possibilities. The invitation to the masked ball, folding secrets within its crisp parchment, lay beside it. Its promise gleamed faintly, a flicker of light against the shadows forced upon her by Reginald's merciless words. Her emerald eyes glistened as she rose, each movement a blend of grace and determined apprehension. The weight of her broken tiara, concealed carefully beneath her pillow, echoed the fracture in her spirit, a crown lost but not relinquished. Eleanor's breath caught as the chamber seemed to close in around her, whispering doubts and warnings, yet somewhere deep inside, a faint yet insurgent hope quivered. In the corridor, the muted footsteps of palace servants melded with the distant clamor of nobles preparing for the night's festivities. Louder, sharper, more oppressive reverberations of power and intrigue lingered beneath the surface. She inhaled deeply, the cool draft brushing against her bare arms, an austere reminder of both vulnerability and the stirring embers of rebellion. Eleanor reached for her gown's hem, its velvet richness a silent assertion of nobility and inner strength. The soft whisper of fabric on marble filled the room as she made her way toward the mirrored alcove, catching a glimpse of herself reflected, a striking woman tangled between duty and desire, encased in an elegant cage of expectation. Her fingers brushed the delicate lace along her neckline, the intricate patterns reminiscent of the court's tangled social web, beautiful yet suffocating. A solitary tear traced down her cheek, caught by the flickering candlelight, transforming into a glowing ember of resolve. Soft footsteps approached. The hushed voice of a trusted lady-in-waiting seeped through the doorway with gentle encouragement. "My lady, the night holds mysteries and hope alike. Perhaps this dance will offer the freedom your heart seeks." Eleanor met the gaze with a hesitant but growing flame. "I will go," she whispered, voice trembling but determined. "Not just to escape but to find what I have lost." The world beyond the chamber awaited palaces filled with whispered secrets and painted smiles, a destiny perched on the edge of a mask. Eleanor lifted the ornate mask, its delicate edges quivering between shadow and light, and fastened it with a steady hand. As the first raindrops began to patter against the stained glass windows, mingling world and realm in a silent symphony, Eleanor stepped into the corridor, her silhouette bathed in the twilight glow, poised between bondage and rebellion. The camera held on her face, eyes full of shadow and spark, a woman taking her first stolen breaths of freedom, knowing the path ahead was riddled with peril but lit by the fragile flame of hope. In the embrace of the kingdom's twilight, Eleanor vanished from sight, the mask a shimmering symbol of her awakening journey into the dance of fate and forbidden desires. The soft, distant thunder rolled, a solemn herald that whispered both warning and promise. The night was alive, and so was Eleanor's heart. The opulent chambers of the palace seemed to constrict around Eleanor, the tapestry-clad walls whispering secrets she could no longer bear to hear. The invitation to the masked ball, once a shimmering beacon of hope, now felt like a fragile thread fraying beneath the heavy hand of Duke Reginald's relentless scrutiny. Her footsteps echoed lightly through the vast, shadowed corridors, every hollow beat a reminder of the court's gaze turned cold and unforgiving. Marble pillars soared into darkness above, their lofty heights a cruel contrast to the weight pinning Eleanor's heart beneath her ribs. She clutched the delicate mask close, its filigreed surface cool and unyielding, a symbol of the veils she must wear in a world where nothing was as it seemed. Duke Reginald's presence was inescapable, a dark storm cloud gathering force in every whispered accusation, every blackened rumor. His words had twisted through the court like venom, questions about her motives, veiled hints that her desires were empire-shattering, her ambitions dangerous, her very heart a threat to his power. Why flirt with rebellion, Eleanor? His voice had slithered to her ears like smoke. Not all masks can hide the truth, and not all truths are meant for the light. Her gaze had dropped, swallowing the sting anew, but beneath the surface, a resolute flame flickered stubbornly against the encroaching darkness. The masked ball was no longer mere escapism, it was a crucible. Amid the cold grandeur of the palace, Eleanor prepared herself with trembling hands, the gown she chose simple yet regal, stitched with gold thread that caught the candlelight like distant stars. The broken tiara, resting carefully in her chamber, felt like a broken crown of shattered dreams, but also a relic of battles fought and survived. As she fastened the mask delicately over her face, the world shifted. The textures of velvet and lace, the scent of jasmine and smoke, the distant murmur of music through marble hallsall merged into a fragile cocoon of possibility. She was both the hunted and the hunter, caught between duty and desire. Outside the ballroom, Reginald's shadow loomed, his cold gaze tracking her every move, sowing discord, tightening the invisible noose around her neck. "Remember, Lady Eleanor," his whisper was laced with menace, "this dance is not yours to command." But Eleanor's breath steadied, her emerald eyes gleaming beneath the mask. Each step toward the gathering was a silent act of rebellion, a declaration that beneath the fractured tiara and delicate veneer, her spirit was far from broken. Within the flickering candlelit corridors, whispers twisted and curled like smoke, suspicions, allegiances, secrets spun in webs thick as velvet drapes. Yet Eleanor moved through it all, half shadow, half flame, her heart pounding with tentative hope and fierce conviction. A soft candle flame flickered at the hall's entrance, wavering against the encroaching darkness, a fragile light that refused to be snuffed out. And as the heavy doors loomed open, the halls filled with masked revelers, Eleanor stepped into the swirl of mystery and music, her dance of destiny begun beneath the watchful eyes of those who sought to claim her soul or crush her dreams. The camera lingered on Eleanor's eyes, unmasked and unwavering, before fading into the mesmerizing whirl of gowns and secrets, the exquisite tension of a night where nothing was as it seemed. The grand ballroom swirled with gilded silks and whispered secrets, a tempest of candlelight and masked eyes beneath a vaulted ceiling dripping in crystal chandeliers. Lady Eleanor moved through the crowd like a shadow caught between worlds, her mask a delicate filigree concealing not only her face but the tumult within, a fragile armor woven from hidden truths and unattainable dreams. Her heartbeat thrummed in time with the distant music, a haunting melody that spilled from the musician's strings and spun through the opulent haze. Yet beneath the enchanting veneer, the weight of the evening pressed against her whispers of court intrigue, the sting of Reginald's venomous doubts gnawing at the edges of her courage. Then, across the room, she sensed a presence, a figure as enigmatic as herself, cloaked in shadow and mystery. The masked guest moved with a quiet grace that pulled her gaze, his silhouette framed by the flickering candlelight like a specter of possibility. Their eyes met, concealed yet piercing, and in that instant, the world narrowed to a breathless tether between two souls lost in disguise. The delicate mask on Eleanor's face reflected the subtle glow of a nearby candle, its flickering flame a fragile symbol of hope struggling against encroaching darkness. Her breath caught as the stranger approached, his identity hidden but the weight of his gaze profound, stirring long-buried yearnings and forbidden possibilities. Words were few but charged a whispered exchange beneath the soaring arches, voices low and trembling with unspoken promises. "Who are you behind that mask?" Eleanor's voice quivered, a blend of fear and longing. A barely audible reply, laced with mystery, someone who sees beyond what others choose to hide. Their conversation was a delicate dance, entwined with risk and revelation, each phrase a step toward an unknown truth. Eleanor's heart quickened, suspicion and hope warring within her as the layers of her carefully constructed world began to peel away. The broken tiara she had hidden beneath her gown burned like a silent confession, the shattered pieces mirroring her fractured sense of self. But now, in the presence of the masked stranger, it seemed less a symbol of loss, more a fragment of the transformation awakening deep inside. Suddenly, the ballroom's air shifted, a ripple of tension coursing through the gathered nobles, a silent herald of impending upheaval. Eyes turned, whispers crescendoed, and the delicate equilibrium Eleanor clung to threatened to shatter. A chilling realization dawned as the stranger's cloak shifted to reveal the faintest glint of a mysterious royal sigil, a mark entwined with the fate of the throne itself. Eleanor's breath hitched. The room seemed to tilt beneath her feet as the masked guest's true significance unfurled, tangled with secrets she never dared confront. The flickering candlelight trembled, casting long shadows that danced like specters over Eleanor's face, a tableau of fear, longing, and fierce awakening. Reginald's earlier threats echoed as a ghostly refrain in her mind, entwining with the revelation that her encounters carried dangers far beyond court gossip. Yet amidst the swirl of uncertainty, a fierce determination flared. Eleanor's voice, steadier now, whispered her truth to the shadows. "I will no longer hide behind masks, neither theirs nor mine." The music swelled, a haunting crescendo framing a chapter's turning point. With her heart pounding, Eleanor stepped into the light of her newfound clarity, the fragile hope shimmering within her, a beacon against the gathering storm. And as the masked ball unfolded around her, Eleanor embraced the transformative power of revelation, poised on the cusp of a destiny that could break chains or bind her forever. The camera held on her silhouette beneath the glittering chandeliers, a woman torn yet unyielding, caught in the dance of love, power, and the pursuit of true identity. The night thickened with a heavy, oppressive silence, broken only by the intermittent drip of water from the stained palace ceilings, a mournful cadence resonating through the cold stone corridors. Lady Eleanor stood alone in the dim glow of her chamber, the flickering candlelight casting tremulous shadows that danced like ghosts against the richly adorned walls. The grandeur that once felt like home now suffocated her, every gilded frame and ornate molding a silent witness to her unraveling world. Her golden hair, usually a source of light and pride, lay disheveled, tangled with strands of despair. The delicate mask she had worn at the ball, now discarded on the velvet chaise, seemed a cruel mockery, a fragile veil of secrets peeled away, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. The broken tiara, hidden beneath layers of silk in an ivory box, felt like shards of a fractured identity, each gem a lost promise. Her chest tightened as she pressed trembling fingers to the silken fabric of her gown, the weight of truth and betrayal pressing relentlessly upon her. The realization that the mysterious masked guest so captivating, so dangerously familiar was intertwined with the throne sent waves of chilling doubt crashing through her fragile resolve. A sudden gust swept through the room, snuffing the candle's flame, plunging her into a darkness so complete it seemed to swallow her whole. The blackout wasn't just of light but of hope, it was an echo of the cold dread knotting in Eleanor's stomach. In the suffocating silence, her mind spiraled, replaying the harsh humiliations administered by Duke Reginaldi's venomous words, the court scorn, the betrayal of trust and safety. The whispered rumors spiraled like a noose tightening with every breath, threatening to choke the last remnants of her spirit. She sank slowly to the floor, the cold marble biting through the delicate layers of her gown, an unforgiving reminder of her lost stature and the precariousness of her place in the labyrinth of power and deception. The empty space where her royal favor once shone felt like a cavernous void, echoing the absence of love and belonging she so desperately craved. Her eyes, shimmering with unshed tears, fixed on the broken tiara's shattered reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror, a symbol of broken dreams and stolen futures. "What am I without them?" she whispered, voice barely audible over the oppressive silence, a question that reverberated through the hollow chambers of her being. Outside, the palace gardens were drenched by a rising storm, thunder rolling ominously as rain battered the stained glass windows, its relentless deluge mirroring the tempest raging within Eleanor's soul. The tempest seemed to seep into her bones, chilling every hope, every dream into brittle shards. Alone and adrift, she cradled the fragile mask to her chest, the last vestige of an identity not yet lost but teetering dangerously on the edge. Her breath hitched, the walls around her whispered threats and broken promises. Time stretched and bent, each moment heavy with the dread of unraveling. The grandeur around her faded into a suffocating cage, silencing the light behind her emerald gaze. And as the candlelight flickered, then finally died, Eleanor was left alone in the engulfing darkness, a solitary figure swallowed by shadow and silence, teetering on the brink of despair and the unknown path ahead. The world beyond Eleanor's chamber was suffocatingly silent, as if the palace itself held its breath in mourning. Outside, the skies smothered the moon, wrapping the kingdom in a blanket of heavy, ink-black clouds that dripped cold moisture against the ancient stone walls. The echoing halls seemed cavernous and endless, each footstep and whispered thought swallowed by the oppressive shadows. Eleanor sat on the cold marble floor, her gown pulled around her like a tattered mark of royalty stripped away. Her golden locks, once meticulously braided, now tangled and limp as water seeped from the cracked windowpane and darkened the tapestries. In her hand rested the broken tiara, its fractured gemstones glistening faintly beneath the fading candlelight, a stark symbol of lost status, fractured dreams, and the splintered pieces of her identity lying scattered around her like shards of a broken mirror. She brought the damaged tiara close to her face, its jagged edges pressed lightly against her cheek, surreal in its coldness. A tear traced a silent path down her face, mingling with the candle wax drip pooled at her feet. The muted crackling of the dying candle was a tenuous heartbeat in the enveloping silence, flickering with feeble hope even as darkness threatened to consume it whole. Eleanor's breath came ragged, her chest tightening under an invisible weight. The warmth she once felt for the mysterious masked guest had curdled into confusion and fear, poisoned by Reginald's venomous revelations. Each whispered secret, every calculated accusation chipped away at the small sanctuary she had tried to build within herself. The distant sounds of the court's revelry, a haunting melody of laughter and clinking crystal, broke through the brittle quiet, a cruel reminder of the world that continued, indifferent to her unraveling. She ran trembling hands through her hair, swallowed hard, then whispered to the shadows, "What remains when all is lost?" There was no answer save the gentle crackle of the candle, fragile as her resolve. Her gaze drifted to the delicate mask, abandoned beside a gilded table, its empty eyes staring back into the void. It bore the weight of hidden truths, secrets that now felt like a suffocating shroud rather than protection. Eleanor's world narrowed to the flickering candlelight, her isolation profound and suffocating, each moment stretched taut with the ache of abandonment. A soft gust brushed past the open window, scattering a single wax droplet onto the floor, a small, shimmering tear that split and faded, vanishing into the cold stone. Her body sank further to the floor as the candle snuffed, enveloping the chamber in deep, inescapable darkness. And in that overwhelming silence, Eleanor lay conquered not just by the court or Reginald's cruelty, but by the shattered hope of love and the relentless chains of a destiny imposed. The camera held on the darkness long after, a silent stage for the storm that raged within an ember waiting, just barely, to ignite. The night pressed heavily against the towering walls of the palace, the chilling breeze wailing through the narrow alleyways like a mournful lament. Lady Eleanor sat alone in a forgotten corner of the royal garden, her silhouette framed by the pale gleam of a waning moon. The broken tiara lay discarded beside her on the cold stone bench, its fractured gems catching the flicker of a single candle placed delicately on the wrought iron table. The light danced with her shadow, casting fractured reflections not unlike the shattered pieces of her spirit. Her breath came in shallow gasps, mingling with the distant rustle of leaves and the soft murmurs of the court else where life carried on, unaware of the storm raging within her. Tears glistened on her cheeks, yet within their shimmering depths stirred a faint, almost imperceptible glimmer of resolve. Images swirled through her mind like dust motes in the flickering light. The stolen moments beneath the ballroom chandelier, the mosque's delicate filigree hiding truths only she could glimpse, the mysterious guest whose presence stirred a longing deeper than fear or courtly duty. It was a man intertwined with fate and consequence, whose identity, once revealed, shattered carefully woven illusions. Eleanor's fingers braced against the stone bench, knuckles pale, drawing strength from the cool, unyielding surface. The candle's flame flickered violently, threatened by a gust that whispered through the garden's shadows but somehow endured a fragile beacon against the overwhelming darkness. From the depths of despair rose a whisper, as quiet and certain as the gentle pulse of the flame. A memory surfaced, a word spoken long ago by a loyal court advisor whose eyes bore the wisdom of countless battles fought in shadows. Hope, the word echoed softly, is the light that even the darkest night cannot extinguish. That word, fragile but fierce, anchored Eleanor's spiraling thoughts. She pressed her palm to the cold stone, the sensation grounding her in a moment beyond fear. In the weighted silence, the rustle of borrowed footsteps approached, a familiar, steady presence. The court advisor stepped into the candlelight, his gaze somber but full of unwavering support. "My lady, this night does not define you," he murmured, his voice a salve to wounds unseen. "There is strength yet undiscovered, paths yet untraveled. You are not alone." Eleanor lifted her tear-streaked face to meet his steady eyes, a fragile spark igniting within the depths of her emerald gaze. The broken tiara, the mask, the whispered threats, they were no longer chains but the crucible from which she would forge herself anew. Slowly, she stood, the candlelight steady as her heartbeat found cadence once more. The garden, though veiled in darkness, felt alive with possibility, a sacred space where shadows and light wove together, birthing a fragile dawn. Her voice, barely a whisper, broke the stillness, "I will not flee." Not yet. The camera lingered on her silhouette against the moonlit sky, a figure poised on the cusp of transformation, the faintest glow of hope flickering within her like the unyielding candle flame. And as the night deepened around the palace, Eleanor took her first determined step back toward the world she had almost abandoned, a journey toward identity, love, and freedom just beginning. The dawn seeped softly through the stained glass of the council chamber, casting shifting hues of deep blue and gold across the marble floors. The air was thick with unspoken tension, yet a faint warmth had begun to dissolve the frigid grip of the night's revelations. Lady Eleanor took slow, deliberate breaths, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a small, carved wooden emblem, the carved sigil of the Alpha King, her last tangible link to a truth she was only beginning to comprehend. The room was lined with figures cloaked in their own shadows, their faces old with worry or guarded with suspicion. The heavy curtains hung like barriers, concealing the storm brewing outside and within. Eleanor's eyes flicked from the emblem to the flickering candle on the central tablet flame, fragile and resilient, trying to pierce through the gloom. Her gown, of muted gold silk, caught the muted sunlight streaming in, shimmering softly, a symbol of her fragile rebirth. Her face, when she looked into the polished surface of a nearby armor, bore the remnants of a storm-wounded yet unbowed. The mask she abandoned moments ago was now burned into her memory, not as a shroud but as a reminder that even amidst darkness, there is a glimmer of hope. With a measured step, she moved closer to the table, her fingertips grazing the carved sigil. The coolness of the wood linked her to the faint hope flickering within, a revelation that dawned in the quietest moments, in the unlikeliest of places. This connection, fragile as the candle flickering beside her, was her first grasp at reclaiming her destiny. Her voice was soft but unwavering, breaking the silence with a faint echo, "Change begins within, even if the shadows cling." A slow, tentative smile touched her lips almost. A first acknowledgement that her internal darkness could transform into a harbor of light. The shadows in the room seemed to hesitate, as if recognizing her awakening, and the candle's flame trembled against the creeping gloom. Outside, the distant roar of thunder announced the storm's retreat, the dark clouds parting to admit tender rays of sunlight, an omen of hope breaking through the darkness. The scene radiated a quiet promise that this fragile moment was the first breath of renewal, a spark hesitant but fierce. Her eyes lingered on the sigil, a symbol of the mysterious shift, dawn's first light piercing the long night, before she drew back, releasing the emblem and stepping away from the foreboding chamber. Yet, her steps carried a newfound purpose, a whisper of resilience whispering amid the ruins. The camera panned out slowly, capturing Eleanor's silhouette against the awakening horizon. The soft glow of the dawn bathed her figure in a gentle embracer posture, upright, her spirit unyielding but still delicate. It was a beginning of fragile hope that whispered of strength to come, even from the depths of despair. And as the scene faded to the first light curling over the palace's edges, the faintest flicker of resolve ignited within her, hinting that the storm within and without was only the prelude to her rebirth. The great hall was bathed in the deep crimson of twilight, shadows dancing along gilded walls as Lady Eleanor stepped forward into the chamber's solemn hush. Her gown, a rich fabric of midnight blues and shimmering gold, caught the flickering torchlight, casting a glittering glow that contrasted her newfound clarity. The weight of her past, once a shackle, had begun to dissolve, replaced by a quiet resolve that burned brighter than ever. Across the room, the noble courtiers and ministers hesitated, their whispers hushed in reverence or suspicion. Eleanor's presence was both a challenge and a promising beacon of strength rising from beneath the rubble of betrayal and despair. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt and fear, now shone with unyielding purpose, a flicker of dawn piercing the long night. Her voice, steady as a distant drum, broke the silence. "I stand here not to defend what I was, but to claim what I am destined to become." The words rolled softly but powerfully, reverberating through the marbled chamber. Her fingers reached to the ornate pendant around her neck, the same sigil etched into the carved stone, a symbol of her rebirth, grasping it as if to anchor her resolve. The room was silent as the weight of her declaration sank in, the flickering torch flames mirroring her inner fire, fragile yet fierce. Shadows grew long and dark, yet they no longer threatened to obscure her. Instead, they became symbols of the chaos she had endured and was now ready to confront. Eleanor moved with measured confidence toward the great table, her steps echoing like a promise not of surrender but of renewal. Her gaze swept across the assembled court, their faces a mirror of her own tumult, the tension, fear, hope, and doubt intertwining like a tapestry woven from threads of past pain and future possibility. Her hand reached out and traced the sigil's intricate carvings on the ancient stone, tears of clarity shimmering in her eyes. From this moment forward, I will forge my path. Not as a mere shadow of expectation but as a voice of truth, my truth. A palpable hush fell, and the flickering torchlight cast a brief halo over her figure, illuminating her at the intersection of darkness and dawn. Her proclamation was no longer a plea but a sordid declaration that her spirit was unbreakable. Outside, the distant storm had begun to quell, the wind softening into a whisper. The skies, once tumultuous, opened with a hint of dawn, an awakening sign that even the darkest night yields to light. The camera lingered on Eleanor's face, unmasked now, luminous with a delicate serenity. Her shoulders, once weighed down by despair, now radiated a quiet strength and spoken testament to a journey transformed. As she turned from the chamber's threshold, the air shimmered with the first whispers of hope, a fragile, luminous thread that pulled her toward an uncertain but luminous horizon. Her silhouette, framed by the opening doors, moved steadily into the dawn's promise, a symbol of resilience and awakening, a quiet storm finally giving way to the light. The Grand Council chamber radiated a luminous glow, its walls bathed in the golden hues of dawn filtering through stained glass, casting fractured rainbows across polished marble floors. Lady Eleanor stood at the heart of the assembly, her figure both regal and resolute. Her gown, crafted from deep blue velvet with intricate gold embroidery, shimmered with a quiet fire, symbolizing her transformation from despair to power. Her gaze swept over the gathered nobles and advisors, their faces a mixture of awe and suspicion, yet even amidst uncertainty, her presence commanded undeniable authority. The flickering candle on the dais cast a steady, unwavering light, a metaphor for her rising strength, illuminating truths long buried beneath society's masks. In her hand, she held the carved sigil, now etched deeply into her soul, a symbol of her journey, her rebirth, and her resolve to challenge the chains of tradition. Her voice, calm but grasping the edges of the room's tension, broke the silence. I no longer seek approval from shadows of a forgotten court. My destiny is not written in the ink of others' fears but in the fire of my own conviction. The words echoed through the chamber, reverberating against the vaulted ceilings, stirring the hesitant hearts of her peers. A pause followed, thick with anticipation, the uncertain before the storm of change. Lady Eleanor stepped forward, her posture upright, as she revealed the truth that had shrouded her in secretive connection to the royal sigil, linking her past to the very throne she was accused of threatening. Her eyes, luminous and fierce, found Reginald's, a man dethroned by ambition and consumed by jealousy. This symbol is not a mark of scandal but of legacy, she declared, voice clear and unwavering. I claim my birthright not as a token of nobility long lost but as proof that my path is mine to forge. A ripple of astonishment passed through the assembly as the true identity of the masked guest, the Alpha Kingwa, revealed, stepping forth from the shadows with quiet authority. The light flickered once more, this time with a sense of victory, as the embodiment of hope and justice, a new dawn, was acknowledged. The chamber erupted into muted applause, respect mixed with disbelief as Eleanor kneeling before the sigil, her face tilted upward in unshaken dignity. Her heart, once shattered and embittered, now pulsed with fierce determination, soaring above the darkness that had threatened to consume her. Beneath the rising sun, the once cold chamber warmed with a newfound promise. The shadows receded, replaced by light, power rooted in truth, courage, and self-discovery. The camera lingered on Eleanor's serene, unbowed expression, capturing the moment of her profound rebirth. As her gaze lifted to the horizon, she saw the first rays of dawn illuminating her future, uncertain but undeniably her own. The final image was her silhouette, framed by the radiant glow, standing on the cusp of a new era, ready to face whatever lay ahead, transformed and unbreakable. The moon hung high in a tapestry of velvet, casting a silvery glow over the tranquil garden where Eleanor stood amid the blooming roses and whispering trees. Her gown, a whisper of lace and pearl, drifted softly in the night breeze, catching the light with a gentle shimmer. A rare calm settled over her, an almost sacred quietness that came after battles fought and innocence reclaimed. In her hand, she held the delicate bracelet given to her by the Alpha King, a simple chain of silver, unadorned, yet symbolizing the profound transformation she had endured. It felt cool, a tangible link between her past fears and the luminous future unfolding before her. Her gaze was soft, yet filled with unspoken understanding and acceptance of the journey and a gentle acknowledgement of the growth within. The garden, once a maze of shadows and secrets, now seemed to breathe with life, illuminated by the moon's tender gaze. The scent of jasmine and night-blooming lilies filled the air, an aromatic embrace of serenity. Her eyes reflected the shimmering light, a mirror to the peace she had begun to forge from chaos and pain. She lowered her gaze, letting her fingertips brush the petals of a blooming chrysanthemum, its fragile beauty a metaphor for her own rebirth. Every scar, every tear, had woven together a tapestry of resilience. Her heart, once heavy with doubt, now pulsed with a quiet confidence, a trust that love and truth could triumph over societal chains and personal fears. A gentle smile curved her lips, not from naivete but from the deep knowing that her true strength lay in her spirit's awakening. She turned slowly, her silhouette a graceful outline against the luminous night, and took a deliberate step forward, an act of gentle surrender to the peace she had claimed. In the distance, the soft ripple of the fountain's water echoed the serenity blooming within her, a symphony of quiet hope and renewal. The camera lingered on her face, a canvas of patience and gentle resolve, before gradually fading into the vast, starlit heavens. The night embraced her as a witness to her rebirth, promising that from the ruins of doubt, new life would always flourish. The moon hung low in a silent, silver sky, casting a gentle glow over the lush gardens where Eleanor and the Alpha King had convened for their final moment of union. The air was thick with serenity, a stark contrast to the tumultuous journey behind them. Lady Eleanor, her gown shimmering softly with the pale lunar light, stood with a calm dignity that radiated from her very core. Her eyes, once filled with doubt and despair, now shone with a luminous clarity, a deep wellspring of forgiveness and understanding. She gently reached out, her fingertips brushing the royal sigil carved into the ancient stone embedded in her palm. The symbol, which once represented secrets and danger, now embodied liberation and truth, an emblem of her transformation. In that tender motion, she acknowledged her past, her pain, and her rebirth. Beside her, the Alpha King's presence was a comforting anchor, his gaze steady and kind. Words were unnecessary. The silence spoke volumes, the language of the heart, reverberating through gentle touches and shared glances. The soft whisper of the wind carried their unspoken vows, a promise of a future built on love, trust, and resilience. The garden's blooms basked in the moon's tender caress, their petals unfurling subtly, echoing Eleanor's own blossoming spirit. The shadows that once cloaked her insecurities had dissolved, replaced by the luminous dawn of peace. Their union symbolized more than love. It was a triumphant acceptance of the true self, embracing imperfection, shedding societal chains, and forging a destiny rooted in honesty. As the scene widened, the camera captured the couple's silhouettes against the darkened horizon, bathed in starlight and hope. The quiet, rhythmic pulse of their shared breaths wove into the tapestry of the night, a symphony of serenity and profound joy. Eleanor's hand found the Alpha King's, clasping it gently, a gesture of forgiveness and unbreakable vow. Her face, illuminated by the gentle glow, radiated serenity, an image of finally belonging, finally free. In that suspended moment, a celestial ballet of moon and stars embraced them, underscoring the truth that love, once hidden in shadows, could now shine brilliantly, an eternal testament to their journey and the triumph of their spirits. Under a sky brushed with the soft glow of dawn, Eleanor and the Alpha King stood upon the palace's highest balcony, their figures silhouettes against the rising sun that spilled gold and lavender across the sprawling kingdom. The air was thick with a gentle silence, a stillness that carried the weight of everything they had endured and everything they now embraced. Her hand, delicate yet steadfast, rested softly on his arm, fingers intertwined like roots of ancient trees, deep and unbreakable. The flickering lantern beside them cast a warm halo, illuminating their faces not in the glow of artificial light but of mutual understanding and unwavering trust. The broken tiara, a symbol of shattered dreams, lay discarded on the stone beneath their feet, forgotten in the dawn's embrace. It was the past's final farewell, a fragment of history that no longer defined them, now merely a reminder of resilience and rebirth. In the quiet harmony of their shared space, Eleanor's gaze drifted to the horizon. The distant peaks caught the sun's first rays, promising a future born from courage and love. Her heart, once heavy with doubt and fear, now beat with a serene strength, a melody of hope that echoed softly through the stillness. She lifted her eyes to his, a smile blooming softly, an unspoken vow of unity before she closed her eyes to savor the moment. The gentle wind weaved through the air, carrying whispers of reconciliation, freedom, and two souls finally unmasked and unbound. With a delicate hand, she reached for the lantern's chain, yet hesitated, sensing that words were unnecessary in a silence too profound for language. Instead, they shared a dance, slow and deliberate like leaves touched by the first gentle breeze of spring, their movements tender yet full of purpose. The moon, now a faint silver crescent, dipped below the horizon, retreating behind the hillside, silent witness to the dawn of their peace. The kingdom below stirred in the wake of the new day, but atop the balcony, time seemed to stand still, a sacred space where love, beyond societal bounds and shadows, had finally found its rightful place. As the couple paused, wrapped in this moment of quiet affirmation, the scene faded into the soft hush of the awakening world, a celestial dance of light and shadow, an eternal symbol of hope, reconciliation, and a peace hard-won but everlasting. Have you ever met someone unexpected at a party? Share your memorable encounters.